Ayy, cruising in the wheel, feeling alright. Turn up my worship at the red light. Getting lost in my praise, but I'm too high. Light turn green, now they honking, they'll be alright. Cruising in the wheel, feeling alright. Turn up my worship at the red light. Getting lost in my praise, but I'm too high. Light turn green, now they honking, they'll be alright. They be trying to put the hoses to my fire. They don't understand why I be praising my Messiah. Sounding like a church in my car with no choir. The windows roll down, turn it up a little higher. When I'm in the spirit, I be feeling transformed. Want me turn it down, saying no to lukewarm. God say do it, better do it, been warned. Baptize my renew, feeling reborn. I know there's a lot that don't like how I do things. They be trying to take me down, trying new things. They don't understand I got protection from the true king. There's a cross on my back that they must clean. Sending praise to the heaven like it's fireworks. Everybody want the chorus, how the body works. Sunday night praising God till the body hurts. Giving honor to the Father for his mighty works. If you're looking for a reason, I can give you one. Think about a battle that you shouldn't have won. If you woke up in the morning, there's another one. If I was you, I would give praise to the Holy One. God gave me joy so the world can't take it. Riding on the boat, sending waves, trying to shake it. Aiming for my faith on the daily, trying to break it. Real fruits from the vine, can't fake it. Cruising in the wheel, feeling alright. Turn up my worship at the red light. Getting lost in my praise, but I'm too high. Light turn green, now they honking, they'll be alright. Cruising in the wheel, feeling alright. Turn up my worship at the red light. Getting lost in my praise, but I'm too high. Light turn green, now they honking, they'll be alright. I just do what's required, this ain't my ways. Wait a minute, why they looking at me sideways? All the shade rolling in like a tidal wave. I just learned to turn it up on them highways. Going through praise God, you forget the hurt. Praising God where the seeds that be in the dirt. Got my worship on high on the way to work. Hey, swerving in my Challenger, skirt, skirt. Gotta even learn to do it in the bad times. Broken heart even in the sad times. He can change the game around before it's even halftime. Put the enemy to sleep before it's nap time. The God I praise hold all the power. FP&L ain't got nothing on his tower. He can bring them lights any minute, any hour. He the one that turn your seed, homie, to a flower. Thank God for the tents when the windows up. I be crying like a baby for a sippy cup. Tears rolling down my face, begging God to lift me up. Had a bad day, that's a good pick me up. Thank God for the tents when the windows up. I be crying like a baby for a sippy cup. Hey, tears rolling down my face, begging God to lift me up. Had a bad day, boy, that's a good pick me up. Cruising in the wheel, feeling alright. Turn up my worship at the red light. Getting lost in my praise, but I'm too high. Light turn green, now they honking, they'll be alright. Cruising in the wheel, feeling alright. Turn up my worship at the red light. Getting lost in my praise, but I'm too high. Light turn green, now they honking, they'll be alright.
Hey, good evening. Welcome back, everybody, to Elation Radio. This is Minister Sedric. How are you this evening? We have lots to talk about tonight. Man, lots to talk about. I'm just excited that we've got a few things, but housekeeping is what it is. So. It's been it's been a long, tough week, but it's been a great week, very productive, and I want to welcome everybody back here at Relentless Pursuit, man. You got to be relentless in this world. You got to just keep going, even though you don't think that there's much to keep going for. So with that being said, I just want to, because tonight I want to talk a little bit about lessons that we could possibly learn from the trial of Derek Chauvin. Now, I know for some of us this is a hot topic. Some of us, we all have different feelings, and I have heard many conversations this week and had a few myself, and it's amazing the vast opinions about the verdict and about everything surrounding the trial of Derek Chauvin. Most of the people I meet, they say it was the George Floyd trial. I don't know how George Floyd got put on trial, but that's what most people say. So with that being said, want to bring on my two co-hosts, Pastor Terry Jones and also Jason Walter. Are you guys on with me tonight?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good. This is a good night.
Yeah.
This is a real good night. I mean, I say that, a good night for me. I've been able to get some rest today, so it's been good. Jason, are you on with us?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Good to hear from you. How you gentlemen?
Doing great. Having a great day today.
Good week, yeah.
Good week. Okay. Well, I didn't even want to. I didn't want to take a bunch of time, and I just want to jump right in. I know we can probably talk about this topic for forever, but country, there were some lessons. America, there were some lessons I believe that could have been learned from how this trial was presented from start to finish, from the actions of a few to the actions of one, across that run the gambit. I mean, there are feelings that run the gambit. But I wanted to ask tonight, like, what are your feelings after this trial? And the thing is, I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about when we first heard about the incident, when charges were pending, when they were brought, then the trial, and how did you finally feel after everything was done? After the verdict was read, sentence hasn't been handed down yet, but knowing that, hey, here's, this is another life that is basically lost. For good or for bad, for right or for wrong, it doesn't, I wanted to get individual. I wanted to get your personal take on what's been unfolding for the last year or so, in these months leading up to the verdict. So, for me, this has been tough. It's been tough. It was tough the first time I saw it in the news, and it was tough the last time I've seen it so far. So, my first question, Jason, I want to ask you, when you heard about what happened with George Floyd, when you heard about the initial incident, the police were called to a scene because the gentleman passed what appeared to be a counterfeit $20 bill, and he was subsequently killed on the pavement. Like, what was your initial thought when you heard that? Let's get it straight. A black man, not just any man, a black man this happened to, and then the fact that these were white officers, and then what, or other than black officers, they weren't all white. What was your initial take on it? Like when you heard about the alleged crime, what was your initial take on it?
I think I remember, like, you and I were kind of talking, and we both just felt tired, right? There wasn't a shock. There wasn't like, oh my gosh. It was more like, here we go again. And I will tell you, for the first time in my life, I felt just a sense of, man, when is this going to stop? It just kind of felt, because that was kind of the moment where you just saw repeated events of where African Americans were dying in their own homes, much less, over and over again, and it was typically by the hands of, the law enforcement. And when I first heard this thing, it was just a sense of just fatigue, and just part of me was like, man, is this ever going to end? It was like, why does this keep happening? And to be truthful, I was a bit defeated, just kind of looking at, where we are here. Here we are in 2020, and we're still dealing with, when we used to watch movies about this and as kids, where black people, black men, black women were being lynched, were being, just murdered, just free willy-nilly, and it was okay. And here we are, supposed to be evolved and past that, and it really hasn't changed that much. It may look a little different, right? But it really ain't changed that much. So when I first heard about the George Floyd thing, my initial response was just a lot of fatigue, a lot of like, man, it's like, yeah, like I said, it was just I almost felt defeated. That are we ever going to get past this? Are we ever going to, as a country, be able to, you know, walk through as a black man? Can I walk through the streets and have an interaction with a cop without me getting a little sick to my stomach about what's going to happen, right? So it was a very sobering experience for me.
Wow. Ted, did you ever take on that?
Yeah, I have to agree.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jason. When I very first heard about it, it was like, okay, here we go again. And this is, and honestly, like Jason said, I felt really defeated. And even then, when I very first saw it, I'm like, oh, they're not going to convict this guy because he's white, he's a police officer, and he's been doing this for a long time. Yeah, we can have all the camera footage because we had just came out of the Breonna Taylor case, and that was clearly, here in Louisville, this woman was sleeping and she got killed, and nobody was charged. And so it was like nothing's gonna happen. If you can't get somebody on that, then you got film, and you're not gonna get them on anything else. And so I felt really defeated when I saw when that whole George Floyd situation first popped off.
My initial assessment, I won't put it up. My initial assessment, and maybe I was looking at it all wrong. My initial thought was, I heard in the news that they found drugs, or he was a drug addict. I heard all of that, but then I thought, okay, here we go again. But this time, I started thinking about things like, okay, let's get both sides of it, right? And that was my thought. My thought was, let's get both sides of it. Don't jump to conclusions. And I found myself, other than talking to you two guys and maybe a couple of other people, I found myself bottling up my emotions. Like I wanted to incubate myself from the trauma. And I feel like, if I don't allow myself to feel anything about this yet, I won't be biased. Because my first thought was they're going to say this is about race, but they were going to use it. It was going to be used in a very negative manner. In other words, here's another black man committing a crime. And, well, you know what? I'm sorry he got killed. But you know what? He committed a crime, and the police had to do what they had to do, right? So on one side, I'm struggling with that. On the other side, I was struggling with this. I was struggling with, here we go again. See, we can't just be America. We got to be Black America, every ethnicity America, right? Insert ethnicity. That's the America we live in. And so I was struggling with that. And then I started struggling with the fact that, you know what? Here's another black man killed at the hands of cops. I started thinking that you know what? We already know what's going on. And I'm one of those guys, and I don't really like using race all the time. I don't. I wish we lived in a society where race didn't matter, but let's face it, it does matter. So I'm not going to be the one to try to tell somebody that it doesn't matter. So my initial thoughts were those. They were. It was tough for me. So so now the videos are up. Now everybody's talking about it. And they're talking about how the officers held down George Floyd. Well, I was looking at everything, and I was hearing them talk about how he was in the store. He was kind of joking around. He bought some cigarettes with this counterfeit $20 bill. He went back to the car, and then I started seeing the videos of the police. When I saw George Floyd, I'm going to be honest, I saw a guy who could have been one of my uncles. I saw a guy who could have been one of the guys on the block where I grew up on. I saw somebody who, yeah, he did drugs. Other than that, he might have been a good person, but I didn't know. But then I started trying to look at him through my other eyes, through the eyes of people who are intimidated by large black men. And I started to see, and I'm going to be honest, I started to look at, I was looking at the video, and those videos were very grainy, but I started looking at the clothes he was wearing. And then I started saying this, I'm going to be honest, I started saying to myself, what grown man would want to be out in public dressed like that? I started saying to myself, his clothes, why would anybody just wear dark clothes like that? They don't really match, but they don't not match. They're just, I got these dark colors, I put them together. Then I started remembering the images of him wearing hats and some of the pictures, some of the photos he took, and I started looking at his eyes, his nose, his face, all his facial features, and I started saying to myself, man, why would you go out in public like this? Who's going to respect this? And then I did the same thing with the officers. I started saying, here we go. White officer, this Asian officer who probably wants to fit in with the white, and he's going to do what the white officer said. You know, I started going through all of that. Then I looked at Chauvin, and I said, man, for real, look how he's looking. This guy is, he's got to be racist. He's got to be prejudiced. He's got to be enjoying this. Did you guys experience any of those emotions at all? Because I'm telling you, I went through a gambit of emotions and thoughts.
Honestly, I didn't run through. I take it back. I did go through the whole kind of guarding my emotions kind of thing that you were talking about earlier. I did kind of go through that. But I really experienced anger when one of the very first things that I saw was when they started bringing up his drug charge. He was, he had been using drugs and this, that, and the other. I'm like, he's the victim here. And I mean, you don't see things like that happen with when you see white people that are in the media. I mean, when things like this happen with white people, where they try to defame them and so it really kind of angered me, because the very first thing they want to do with us as black men is demonize us. And I mean, even though we could have been the victim or the perpetrator, they want to demonize us. And I'm like, and that really made me angry more than anything, because I'm like, this is a dead man, and you're concerned about his prior drug use. That has nothing to do with this guy. This has nothing to do with this guy that stays on his neck for 9 minutes and 26 seconds or 36 seconds. It has nothing to do with that. And so that really just kind of really ticked me off. I was really upset about, because I had heard someone say, "Oh, well, you just don't know what he could have done." I'm like, really? You're going to say that to me? And this was a white person. That really kind of angered me. I'm like, you're really going to say that to me? That this man did something, deserves somebody to stand on his neck for 9 minutes and 36 seconds, to kneel on his neck. Nobody deserves that. And so it just really angered me, Cedric, more than anything.
Yeah, what's funny about that is I had a conversation with a gentleman, and he said, well, when I looked at the photo and they showed the picture, his knee wasn't on his neck, it was on his shoulder. And I said, so one picture showed you that. Well, yeah, I saw that picture. I said, did you also see the one where his knee was on his neck and his foot was on the ground? Like that. No, I didn't see that. And so I guess what you're saying, Terry, is that how is it that two people can see this thing totally different? How is it there are so many people who are so willing to say that the officer did? They don't ever say he did the right thing. They said it was the legal thing. Like he's not human. It's not deer hunting season, so you can't hunt deer. You know what I'm saying? And then like I'm waiting for the moment when somebody simply says, this is no longer season. Okay, you can't hunt people like they're animals. And that's a big deal to me. Because as we watch this, I started looking at, like on the justice side of this, why is justice different for blacks or people of blacks, I'm going straight to black. Why is justice different for black people than it is for other than black, than it is for white people, right? And I'll tell you what I mean, Terry. You touched on something that made me think. Think about this. When that white woman got shot in the head at the Capitol or wherever he shot her, did you ever see her face? Nope. They blurred.
Nope.
When she hit that floor, her face was blurred. You've never seen her face laying on that floor.
Nope.
I can go down the list. Every black person that's been killed, you have seen their face after they have died. You saw their face during their death. The only one you haven't seen so far is the what's his name? The young man who just had his funeral, right? They didn't show his face.
Yeah.
Right. And why is that? I mean, is justice different? Is it the media? Why is it that the media shows us differently? I mean, the media, time and time again, you heard this man begging for his life, and they showed it. They showed it. But if it's a white person, you don't see a face.
Yeah. Can I jump in there, Sedric? I think you and I had this conversation a long time. What's the origins of law enforcement? The origins.
Go
all the way back to slave days. They were the slave patrols. And so I believe that element is still present in modern day policing. And honestly, and it was really sparked. It was when David Dukes told the KKK members, okay, it's time for us to come out of the sheets. Now let's become judges. Let's become police officers. Let's become governors. Let's become mayors of cities.
So military, let's run the cities.
So basically, what they did was they reinstituted a formal way of thought. That was originated back in those times. We're here, and so that's what we were talking about. That's why they've been talking about dismantling. People have been talking about, you need to dismantle this whole thing and rebuild it back up again to where it's inclusive of those who it was designed to be against. Because the way it is right now, that whole train of thought, us versus them, we're coming after them. It's so prevalent in today's modern policing, but that came from a long history of slave patrols, of people, of the wrong type of people infiltrating that piece of government. It's really it's really taken on a life of its own, and it was never meant for us. It was never meant to benefit us. It was never meant to save, protect, and serve us, was it? No. It was never meant to protect and serve us. It was meant to arrest us and take us back to the plantation where we belong, where they felt we belong.
And, the funny thing about that is, I don't want to. Well, when you go back there, why was it so easy for these same slave patrols to go up north and snatch up free black men and bring them down south and cast them into slavery? And you're right. The design flaws were to keep a certain group of people in line, right? And I say flaws, but we know that. Again, I said it before. I don't believe the laws were written to be fair here in America. They weren't. They're not fair. I believe that there's a push to make them better, to correct them. But check this out. This came from a conversation I had today. And it was a white gentleman, and he said that he believes. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I just want to throw it out before I forget it. He said that he believes this is all a conspiracy to create that one world order, to cause. Check it out. To bring communism to America, what we do is we get all the factions of people fighting against one another over whatever the cause, and you have a plethora of causes, and this is a ploy to bring communism to America. This is not about justice. This is not about equality. This is to create basically the government will pay everybody a certain amount of money, basically give them a take check, so everybody gets equal. Nobody gets more than the other, and then the country will be run by the politicians and the ultra rich. I say, well, that sounds like communism, but even communism ain't quite that simple. But anyway, that's what this person said to me. How does that make you feel that people, rather than talk exactly about the issue about what happened with policing in this George Floyd incident, the murder, that they jump to other topics? I mean, they would have made this a whole big conspiracy theory rather than say, you know what happened wasn't right. Why do you guys think it's so difficult for certain people to not be honest about it? Like this guy
too much like right.
To me.
Too much like
I
right.
want to go back to something you said. I want to go back to something you said earlier, where people don't talk about was it right or was it wrong. They talk about it was legal, right? And that's one of the things that I would tell you that I worried about the most. I'm worried about, these juries who sit in there and they get to hide behind the law. And then the way the laws are written, they don't allow for equality. So it's interesting that, like, when you said that, because that's where a lot of people go. That's where they want to go. Well, he didn't break the law, but I mean, for some reason this one resonated. Well, I mean, even if he did break the law, like, if for some reason this resonated with me, because you saw incidents where people are running at cops with a knife, right? Cops kill them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you that's wrong, right? I don't think anybody who can look at that situation and say, like, okay, this person put the life of a cop in order, and the cop took his life for that. Although a life was lost, I can easily say, okay, that makes sense. But then when you see this man has just had a $20 bill, because supposedly,
right,
and he loses his life just like that man running up on a cop with a knife. And when you ask people about that, like, look at the end result. Yeah, you want to talk about laws being broken, but we all have relativity with it. So the end result's the same. This man did not run up on a cop with a knife. He didn't pull a weapon out.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do anything. But he might have he was a little bit frustrated or whatever they said. But he still lost his life. And the problem I have is, when people say, well, it was legal. Well, we're not talking about legal. We're talking about what's right. And the fact that our laws allow for that to happen.
Morally.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that our laws allow for that to happen, I think that's where people miss out, where they can say, well, it was legal. Well, I'm like, what kind of laws do we have on our books that would allow a man to kill another man, not in defense of his life, not in defense of the life of somebody else, not even in defense of his property, just because he has a badge? Right,
mm-hmm.
And the people don't want to have that conversation, So that's why I think they want to go to different things. That's why they want to talk about conspiracies and all this other stuff. Because when you look at the law and what the law says, you have to face the facts that, man, this law allows for a human life to be taken for no other reason than this man has a badge. And when you come face to face with that, and you have to kind of face that. Then what does that say about you that you're saying I'm okay with this law? What does that say about you where you're saying, well, I'm a law and order person, right? What does that say about you about a country who has these laws on the books, have had these laws on the books time and time and time and time again, and nothing's changed, and all you've done is support that system, right? What does that say about you?
Right.
So of course they don't want to face the fact that this was unjustified, This was not morally or ethically right, and we have a system that allowed this law to sit in that place. And for the longest time, and I think there is a day of reckoning. People are realizing that, man, I've supported this law for this long, and instead of being like, you know what, I see the error of my ways, I want to double down and be like, well, he did break the law, and he did have ethanol, and I want to say all this stuff on this. I'm like, come on, man. At the end of the day, it's this. This is a person, this is a human being who had a life, and it was taken from an officer. And the officer was not in protection of his own life, wasn't in protection of the life of someone else, or even a property. It was only because this man lost his life because the officer had a badge, and that's it. There's nothing else.
Yeah. It's funny you said that, Jason. The person I was talking to earlier today, I encouraged him. I said, why don't you do me a favor? So why don't you go out, just whip up your the Google machine, and I want you to type in white man fights cop.
Mm-hmm.
There's story after story. There are stories out there where a white man fought a cop, stole the police car, stole his police car.
Yes, he did.
Stole his patrol car, and there were no shots fired.
No shots
There's a story
fired.
of a man in a grocery store fighting. They're on the ground fighting with a cop. Guy gets beat up because 3 or 4 officers show up. But guess what happens? There are no shots fired. There's a story about a man who shoved the cop, took off running. No shots fired. There's a story out of New York where a guy fights with cops and somehow he escaped. And that's the thing. That feeling that you guys were describing earlier about that helplessness, that I'm gonna put it in my own words. That feeling of despair, that defeated, hopeless, tired feeling. See, that's where I'm getting stuck. So as we go through it, as I go through and I was looking at these videos, then I look at the public outcry. Why is it? It seems like most of the people who defended the police, who took the side of the police, they were people who were, well, I'm going to say, they were white people. Or I thought, why is it, I'm going to ask you this, I'm talking personal feelings here. Why did it make you feel uneasy when somebody tried to defend the actions of the police? Is it just because of what we just talked about, the whole ordeal about slavery, the whole ordeal about equality, or is it something bigger?
For me, I would tell you.
Go ahead. Here for me, it goes to this. It goes to something that Shannon Sharp said the other day. Shannon Sharp says, if you have a black friend and you don't feel empathy, you don't have a black friend. You just have a friend that you just have someone that you know that's black. And what that says to me is this: is if you have a person that's white and they're looking at that and they know and they say that they're close to me and they don't have empathy for that, we ain't friends, because that could have been me. Does that make sense? So that could have been me. That could have been my kid. That could have been my son or my daughter that has been through that. And if you don't have empathy to even remotely try to understand how that happened and why that happened, then we ain't friends at all.
I hear that. Go ahead, Jason.
We're not friends at all.
Now, like I said, when I hear those defense of the cops, it just goes back to just what I said before. I mean, this is a human life, and you're more worried about defending, an institution than you are a human life. But we talked about this so many times that when people see a black person, they don't see a human being. I mean, I go back to that situation at a mall where you had this 40-year-old, 300-pound man that just punches this 13-year-old girl like she's a grown man, and when they talk to him, or when you hear the commentary, although they were threatening him, they're 13-year-old kids. I have kids. Let a group of 13-year-old girls and boys run up on me, right? I'm not going to see them as a threat. Now, if they got a weapon or something, maybe. But there are a bunch of kids being loud and rowdy. And I'm like, man, you know what? But that just resonated with me. I'm like, how is a parent? Because he said, well, he's got 2 kids and they're about the same age. I'm like, I cannot see myself looking at a 13-year-old and seeing anything but a baby, And no matter what they're doing to me, I'm going to handle them like they're a baby, right? I mean, I handle them like they're my baby, but I'm going to handle them like they're somebody's baby, So when I hear this defense, when they want to say, well, the cop, and they want to go, like I said, well, the law says, I'm just like, that's a human life, yo. I mean, that was a human being that lost his life, for what reason, right? Why did he lose his life? Cop wasn't trying to defend his own life, wasn't trying to defend the life of somebody that was being threatened. He lost his life because the cop had a badge, and that's it. That is it. And it's just so hard to continue to look at those situations and just You know, and just and not feel that sense of like we talked about, that despair, that's like,
Yeah, and then when I think of all the things that are happening, I mean, think about this. I mean, you've got, you've got what happened, mass shootings in Colorado. You got South Carolina. You got Virginia. You've got all these mass shootings, all these crimes. They refuse to call them terrorists. Why aren't they calling them terrorism? I think the problem is, and these are some of the thoughts that went through my head, the biggest terrorists right now, I've heard it said, and y'all got to forgive me, but I've heard it said that the biggest gang in America is the U.S. military, right? So if that be true, then the absolute biggest terrorist organization in America right now, and please, I want to put this in context. I feel like the biggest terrorist organization in America right now is not ISIS, it's not Al Qaeda. We ain't got to worry about them. Here it is.
The police.
And let me tell you what I'm saying. And again, I'm a guy, I support police. Don't get it twisted. I respect the job that good police do. Right? I do. I truly respect the badge. I mean, I'm the guy on the block. I sometimes will just go up and shake a police officer's hand. One time I even paid for a group of firefighters. I paid for their lunch. They were sitting at a table. They weren't paying attention to me. It was just, I just respect it. I'll do it for a soldier. I'll do it for police officers. But what I'm saying is they're allowing the bad cops to depict police departments, in my opinion, as some of the biggest terrorist organizations around. And I'm so frustrated that good cops won't stand up. I'm so frustrated that cops with good morals and values won't stand up. Truth be told, me, Sedric, I don't care if a cop is racist. I don't want them policing my area. But if you're going to be racist, if you can at least be fair, then I'm okay. All right. You got a difference of opinion when it comes to skin color. I don't care. But if we can all be treated the same. And so why is it that we're afraid to do that now? One of the things I learned from the Chauvin trial is that people are afraid to call a duck a duck. I don't care if the duck is black. I don't care if the duck is white. But why do you think we're that afraid to have the public conversation about it? Because I keep getting stuck on this.
I think the concern is when you start talking about racism and racist beliefs and thoughts like that, and you know, everybody wants to say, okay, if you're wearing that white hood and sheets, you're a racist. Okay, you know, everybody wants to say if you got that swastika tattoo and you got a bald head, you're racist. Okay, but when you start looking at these cops and these other people, I think when people look at them, they're like, well, I'm not that much different from that person. So if he could be called a racist, what does that make me? Right? So instead of like searching their own hearts to say, is there any truth? Could there be something in my thought process, in my mindset, in my perspective, in my mentality that does dehumanize another human being? Could there be something in my upbringing, in just my schema of the world that allows that? Instead of coming face to face and asking themselves that, they fight for it. They're not fighting for that man. They're not fighting for Derek Chauvin. They're fighting for the Derek Chauvin in them. And what they're afraid of is if Derek Chauvin can be convicted of being a racist, then so can I, right? So these people aren't fighting. I mean, they're not really fighting for Derek Chauvin. They know in the deep down in the bottom of their hearts what that man did was wrong. And to take another human being's life, it was wrong. But that's the thing about it. They're not fighting for him. They're fighting for the Derek Chauvin in them because they see him. They're like, well, he doesn't have a swastika. He doesn't have a thing. I would have thought the same thing if I was in that situation. So if he's a racist, what does that make me? And so it's like, well, I'm not even going to come face to face with that. Well, you know, he has this and that. And so now they start fighting, you know. And so that's really what this has always been about, is that people don't want to face the racism within themselves. And when they come face to face with that, instead of saying have a real soul-searching moment to say, what in me allow me to see another human being less than that? Instead of having that moment, they fight for where they are. They fight for the status quo, and until And it kind of goes back to what I always said. When someone comes to me and says, "Man, I didn't know it was that bad for black people," my response to them is, "You did know. You just chose to recognize. What I need for you to do, because this is something I can't understand, is what in your heart and your mind allowed you to see a human being be treated like that and make it okay. Because once you can face that in yourself, then you take that to your brothers and sisters on your side." And you help them come out of that, because I can't help them get out of that. Because when I see that, I see injustice. I see something that's morally and ethically wrong. I don't care what the law says, right? So I don't have that mindset. So I can't lead and guide anybody out of that mindset, because it's never been something instilled in me.
Right.
See, that's and that's what scares me. That's what scares me is that I like what you said, Jason, the Chauvin in me. So I see something that connects me to this person. But again, when I go back, let's jump into the trial. When we heard all of the information being put out, the prosecution put everything out on the table. But I saw people, and I heard people say, well, like I tell you, when they had the one doctor up and he says his death was caused by lack of oxygen. I don't know if y'all look at shows, but I look at the news. I look at cable news. I look at local news. And there were people saying that, well, there's no way for him to know that. Well, there's no way for him to calculate exactly how much weight was put on the neck of George Floyd. Right? But let's talk about this. I mean, no, he may not get the exact amount, but he can get very close to the amount of weight that was applied to this man's neck. And I'm finding that people, I don't know, it's like they take one side or the other. And the thing that discouraged me most about the trial, this is what discouraged me most, is that people will find a way to support their point of view, even if it means that their point of view is immoral, unethical, and unlawful. And how does that make you feel about being here in America at that point? I mean, are you happy? Are we to be? It seems like what a lot of people want from people of color, from black people especially, you ought to just be happy we let you be here. Am I the only one who feels like that? Because I don't want to go the rest of my life feeling like that. I don't want my children feeling like that. I don't want my grandchild growing up.
Yeah, it's that sense of it used to be worse. You got it better now, and it's almost like that's the attitude.
Yeah.
Well, because I listen to radio. They're like, well, you think racism is bad here? You should go to these other countries, and they're really racist. I'm like, America should not be compared to a third world country who barely has running water. We are supposed to be the leaders of the free world. So the standards we set for ourselves have to be higher. So to tell me like, well, you're not facing the same racism they do in this part of the country, or this part of the world, I'm like, I don't care. I don't live in that part of the world. I live in what should be what is claimed to be the leader of the free world. And no, I shouldn't feel like this. No, this is not acceptable. This is not okay.
But Jason, I totally agree with what you're saying. But we're not ever going to get to that point until this country reconciles and deals with our racist past. Period. Until we deal with that and realize that this was built wrong. This country was built on the backs of black people. Period. Literally. Until people are willing to stand up and say, you know something, we were wrong for what we did. I may not have done it personally. My ancestors may have done it, but I'm standing at this point right here, right now, admitting that this was wrong. And these laws that have been set up are wrong because they go against, literally, it does not benefit you as a black person. It does not help you. We say it's supposed to be, equal justice under the law, but that's not the case because we have people that have infiltrated and have gotten in positions that honestly they're out for themselves. They're out for their white counterparts. I mean, I'm doing this. I feel like I'm sounding like I'm on my soapbox, but until we deal with the root problem, and again, y'all know what the root. You know, when you deal with plants, like when you deal with dandelions, if you don't pull that dandelion up from the root, you're going to have that same problem come back. It may not be next week, it may be a month later, but you're going to have that problem until we dig this root up, until this root of racism is dug up. We're going to continue to deal with this until we die, until the next generation, until somebody stands up and says enough is enough.
Enough is enough is enough. You know, and that's the point we get to, because in learning in this Chauvin trial, definitely what we're just talking about, I'm learning that the justice, and I don't think it's the total justice system, the totality of the laws that are in place are so wrong. I believe that the way they're policed is wrong. You hear what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I believe that they're. I've also learned that our police departments, we got 18,000 different police
doing 18,000
organizations across this country, or departments across this country, and they all have their own rules. There's no central standard. Like when you're a soldier, there's a standard. There's a standard across the board. Now, the problem with the standard is it is enforced differently because of the type of soldier you are, right? Well, then why can't we have one standard for police? See, it scares me. So that's another thing I learned. Then the other thing, I know we're about to start running short on time, but here's the other thing. When the verdict was handed down, I got to ask you this question, guys, and I'll start with you, Terry, and then Jason, you go second. But how did it make you feel when the verdict came down? What were your thoughts about it? Like how did it make you feel that, okay, there's a conviction here? Did it make you feel better about the system? But elaborate a little bit for us on how it made you feel, how you felt after this verdict. For me,
when it first came down, I realized, like the prosecutor said, he said, look, this is about one individual's actions. But there was a sense of vindication, and I was able to breathe. Like, okay, there is possibility if we handle this the way that this guy handled it, or the way that they handled this one, which was this is one individual's actions that we're looking at. We're not saying that all police are bad. We're getting them, we're getting this one bad apple out. You know what I'm saying? So there was a level of vindication that I felt when that happened.
Mm. Okay.
To a point.
Okay.
To a point.
Certain level of vindication.
Certain level.
Okay. What about you, Jason?
I would tell you when I was kind of reading through the media, and when they went through and they said that it came out that the jury had a verdict, my stomach dropped a little bit because I was expecting. I wasn't expecting for a conviction, right? I was not expecting a conviction. So when the conviction happened, part of me felt a sense of, that's shocking. I went to church later on that evening, and I was talking to one of our deacons, and he's a retired police officer, and he said something that just hit me. He said, you know what, this thing ain't over yet. I mean, yeah, he got convicted, but if they just give him 2 or 3 months in jail, what's that really going to do? And he said something. He said, sometimes we celebrate way too early because, and then, when he said that, it just reminded me of a quote I said. It says, okay, accountability has won out, but the sentence will tell you if justice is really served, right? Now we're going to see how much does a black life really matter, right? When they talk about how much of his life he's now going to lose behind the bars. So although I'm glad there's been some accountability. Now we need to see justice, because here's the deal: if these cops know that, hey, I killed somebody, okay, whatever, they'll hit me, I'll go to jail for a couple months and get out. and can start all over again, that's something needs to resonate with these law enforcement people that says no, this is changing, So although I appreciate the accountability that Derek Chauvin inherited. Now, real justice is going to come when you tell me how much George Floyd's life was really worth, right? When you sit there and say, Mr. Chauvin, because you took another human's life, you're going to spend this many years behind jail. Because you got to think about it. How many black people are sitting behind jail over something lesser than this, right? I have some drugs, right? I stole a car, I broke into somebody's house and just robbed them. No one even died, right? And they're sitting in jail 30, 40, 50 years for something like that, And so, so when the verdict was read, I did feel a sense of I felt a sense of and some accountability, and then part of me, felt like I don't know if we really have real change, right? I don't know, because one of the things I heard was, well, the jury just said that because they were afraid of what the backlash was going to be if they found them guilty, right? And if there's any real truth in that, then we're not really talking about justice. We're talking about fear. And if you're telling me the only way that I can get justice in this country is to make you afraid, well, then don't get mad when all these things are happening. Don't get mad when things get broken. I like you said, Cedric. I am not an advocate. I don't advocate violence, looting, or anything in that sense. But if you're telling me the only way I can feel justice is for you to be afraid, well, you make me make a choice.
So I say it's bigger than that. I say you've shown me the blueprint for doing it. Don't get me started. I say you've shown me the blueprint. You don't believe me?
Right.
Cop walks up to you in a grocery store. Do you feel uneasy? I'm sorry. That's fear. That's survival. That's fight or flight. I'm sorry. That's what it is. That's your mind recognizing that danger could be, maybe not. I don't know, but one of the things that I want to take that I want everybody to take with them is that one of the things I think. The word is accountability. We held one officer accountable.
Right, accountable.
So far, 1 out of 4 accountable for a crime. I'm like you, Jason. I'm waiting to see what the sentence is. And I'm I'm a very forgiving person. And I think us, the way we've grown up as black people in America, people want to say African Americans, people want to say descendants of Americans. As black people in America, one of the things we've grown up with, and it was, for me, it was passed down through my parents, is forgiveness, right? And we read about it in the Bible. But it seems like we are the most forgiving people. So I said the sentence for this crime being perpetrated the way it was is going to tell, like you said, Jason, how important a person like George Floyd's life was. You see, we deal, the way we judge importance here in America most of the time is what's your position, what's your title, how much money you got, how much influence do you have. You guys know the higher up on that on that particular level you are, the stiffer the sentence is for the person who perpetrated the crime against you. You see, that's where I have a problem. Is because if the judge goes by stuff like that, and I know that they have rules that, these sentences, he's got rules. But that's one thing I learned. The other thing is, check this out. Trial still going on, verdict's not handed down. We got Dante Wright. I couldn't think of his name earlier. We've got Adam Toledo. And then we've got Ma'Khia Bryant killed. While this trial is going on, with all this unrest in the country, killed. As I said before, you can pull it up on YouTube. Just open up Google, open up your Yahoo browser, open up Excite, open up MSN, open up a web browser. Okay? Open up your web browser and just type in white man fight cops. And you'll see how they can punch cops, knock cops out, and still not catch any bullets. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm asking for it to be applied across the board. If I don't like the way a cop's talking to me, I shouldn't be shot and killed. I shouldn't be. If I think that a cop is trying to pull me over on this dark road, and I turn my flashes on and I creep to a lighted area where I feel a little more safe, I shouldn't be maced just because I don't get out the car when the cop tells me to, right? I shouldn't be threatened by police. You're going to ride the lightning. For real? That's how we're going to do this? And then if you say it to one of them, guess what they call it? Terroristic threatening. You know? And so I have a problem with that. I know that with this verdict, it's not going to fix the whole problem. And the point I want to make is I'm not even going to breathe a sigh of relief until they do what they're doing in Minneapolis. Let's let our Justice Department investigate these police departments. Let's allow our Congress to rewrite policing, not just for one city, not just for one state, but for the whole darn country. Because I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, this is what just happened, what has been happening. Y'all lived through this last election, right?
Right.
The last regime is gone, right? And it was more of a regime than a administration. What's happening now? They're all over the country, 144 plus different laws about voting. Whenever you do something that starts to equalize the system or start to show that the system is in your favor, right, they move the goalposts. And I think that's what's going to happen with policing. Now, forgive me for not being an eternal optimist, but I believe that's what's going to happen with policing. Okay, this is a systemic problem, and it's going to be a systemic problem until we change the face of law enforcement. Until we change the face, right? It's like school. You know, they integrated the schools, right? What happened after that? Oh, well, schools in these lower income areas, yeah, you don't get the same benefits as schools in these higher income areas. Oh, better than that, all the schools are going to get the same stuff. Well, if you can't afford to send your kid to private school, then you're in trouble. Y'all know what happens. And so that's my fear, my last real concern about how we do things here in America. I will tell you, I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to have served our country in the ways that I have served, and I'm proud. I've been to other countries, and I'll tell you that our system is definitely one of the very best systems. But because of this word called capitalism, because of this word called greed, we always have a problem. So with that said, you guys have any closing remarks?
No, I just, like I said, I mean, I love we have a sense of accountability. Now, to your point, I'm holding my breath, waiting for justice, not just against Shalman, but now against those other three, you know, and then, you know, maybe then we can start having some real eye-opening things so we can start moving the bar, so we can start, you know, having real change.
All right. I like that. Terry, closing remarks from you? I wanted to just leave you with this. I usually go ahead, Terry.
No, go ahead. I said I'm good.
All right, good. I just wanted to leave you with this last thing. And it's just, for me, it's that thing. I'm gonna leave it in God's hands, and it just basically says, comes out of one of my favorite books in the Bible, Ephesians chapter 3. I think it's verse 20, and you hear this a lot. Now, to Him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us. I'm going to leave it to God because the power is in His hands. We all have work to do, and we all need to put forth this is going to take a monumental effort. So that's what I'm going to lay mine on. I'm going to lay everything on the line. For me, it's going to go to the power of God. I'm going to rely on His power. And with that being said, Sister Kimmy, if you will go ahead and cue up our music. I just want to say, you know what we say at this time in the show, find something you love, chase it, embrace it, and that is your relentless pursuit. And we'll see you again on next Friday. God bless you. We love you. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, gents. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, my man. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.